You don't need a new philosophy. You need a new way of meeting your own questions. Because if Socrates is anything, he is not a lecturer. He is a mirror with teeth. And the revolutionary approach in his method isn't about winning arguments, it's about making it impossible to hide from yourself. If you're here, something in you is already suspicious of certainty. Maybe you're tired of slogans. Maybe you've outgrown your old beliefs, but you don't yet have better ones. Good. That discomfort is not a failure. It's a doorway. So let us talk about the best revolutionary way to come to philosophy using Socrates as your guide. Not as a museum piece, not as a perfect man from a distant past, but as a living technique for thinking when you're emotionally tangled. And I'll speak to you like I'm sitting across from you, in that quiet space where you can feel your mind trying to protect itself. I won't tell you what to think. I'll help you notice how you think. At the beginning, most people assume philosophy is mostly about conclusions, a system, a worldview, a set of answers you can carry like armor. But Socrates starts somewhere else entirely. He starts with the question you avoid. Not the question you can answer quickly, the question that makes your stomach tighten, the question that threatens your self-story. He treats, I think, as a hypothesis, not a verdict. And that one shift, just that, can feel revolutionary, because it refuses to let your ego quietly draft the laws of reality. So here is the first reorientation. Philosophy is not a collection of thoughts. It's an examination of your soul's habits of belief. And that's why Socrates can be so unsettling. He doesn't flatter you into confidence. He invites you into honesty. Now let us name the Socratic method in a way that is actually usable. There is a cycle. It begins with a claim, continues with questions. Then it reaches a moment of confusion, sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes clarifying. And it ends with a revised understanding, not because you were forced, but because you can no longer sustain the old version of reality. A lot of people think the goal is to sound clever. Socrates makes the opposite choice. The goal is to stop self-deception. And yes, that can feel like a small revolution inside a person who has been running on autopilot. But here is the irony, because this is where most people accidentally sabotage themselves. They think skepticism means I don't trust anything, as if uncertainty is the final destination. Socrates would probably raise an eyebrow at that. He is not trying to destroy meaning. He is trying to remove the false scaffolding you've built under your meaning. Because you can be skeptical in a shallow way, like someone throwing stones at a house without noticing the house is already collapsing. But Socrates is more precise. He asks, what do you actually believe? Why do you believe it? What experience supports it? And what would disprove it? He is not just asking questions. He is testing the quality of your reasons. So if you want the best revolutionary approach to philosophy, you don't start by collecting facts. You start by practicing intellectual tenderness with yourself. You let your beliefs meet your questions without panicking. That means you treat your current answers as temporary until proven honest. It also means you stop using philosophy as a way to protect your image. You know that move? I'm right, and if you disagree, it's because you're ignorant. Socrates doesn't tolerate that kind of thinking. Not because he is moralizing, but because he is allergic to emptiness. He would rather you admit, I don't know, than pretend you know while you're really just defending your pride. And that leads to the first guiding question for you right now. What are you claiming to know that you're only holding because it keeps your identity intact? Think about it gently, not like an interrogation, like detective work. Where does your mind get defensive? Where do you stop exploring and start performing? This is the irony phase. Your intuition is often the last person you should trust. Not because intuition is always wrong, but because intuition is rarely neutral. Your feelings are informed by your history. Your history is shaped by your attachment, what you learn to want, what you learn to fear, what you learn to survive. So when you say, it just feels true, Socrates would ask, feels true to whom? If your childhood taught you that love is earned, you may feel drawn to philosophies that demand you earn your worth. If you were humiliated, you may feel called to doctrines that declare certainty as protection. If you're terrified of being ordinary, you may feel attracted to systems that make you special. None of this makes your beliefs bad. It makes them human. But it also means your first instinct might be less like a compass and more like a loyal dog pulling you toward a familiar street. So hear us the Socratic pivot. Don't ask only, is this belief true? Ask, what role does this belief play in my life? Because a belief can function like emotional scaffolding. It can hold you up while quietly keeping you from seeing. Now, let us move into the meutic phase where the point is not to pour knowledge into you, but to help you give birth to your own clarity. Socrates is often described as a teacher, but he acts more like a midwife. He helps you discover what you already carry. So I want you to consider something that might challenge you. The problem you keep searching for may not be out there. It may be in the way you cling. You say, I need the right philosophy, but what if what you really need is a different relationship to not knowing? Like Jung, who would tell you the psyche is not a machine, it's a living landscape. If you refuse to face your inner contradictions, they don't disappear. They become moods. They become patterns. They become the weather of your life. Socrates, in his own language, would say something like, you can't examine the world while you refuse to examine yourself. So here is your guided, unfolding question. When you feel conflicted, do you treat that conflict as an error to fix or as a signal to understand? Most people treat inner conflict like an alarm that should be silenced. But sometimes it's a compass that points to where your identity and your truth are no longer aligned. Let us get even more specific. Think of a question you care about: love, meaning, purpose, freedom, morality, death, success. Now think about the answers you've leaned on. Which ones calm you quickly? Which ones make you feel more powerful? Which ones help you avoid grief, avoid responsibility, avoid being seen? Now ask, are these answers supporting your life or managing your fear of what life might demand? Socrates would call that distinction essential, because philosophy that only soothes you can become a sedative. Philosophy that only challenges you can become a weapon. The revolution is philosophy that both questions you and respects you enough to change you gently but fundamentally. Not by forcing, but by revealing. Now we arrive at the reframe, the insight moment that can shift your entire approach. You've been taught that the goal is to arrive at the correct conclusion. But Socrates suggests a different goal: to become the kind of person whose mind can follow truth wherever it leads, even when it threatens your comfort. That's why his method can feel revolutionary. It doesn't just ask, what is justice? It asks, what kind of person do you become when you chase justice honestly? You can think of it like this: the method is the moral education. The questioning isn't just mental. It's ethical. Because how you question becomes how you relate to others, and how you relate to others becomes how you live. Philosophy becomes a practice of integrity. Not because you memorize doctrine, but because you learn to notice when your mind is bargaining for safety. Camus wrote about the absurd and the need to live without illusions. Socrates doesn't call it absurd, but he's doing something similar, refusing the comfort of unearned certainty. And Alan Watts would say, in his own poetic way, that you stop trying to control reality and start seeing it as a process. Socrates is like that process, but sharpened into a question. What are you trying to control inside your head that reality is already moving past? So, if you want the best approach to philosophy coming from Socrates, here is the simple method you can try the next time you sit with a big question. First, state your belief clearly. No vague language. No fog. Second, identify what you assume without evidence. Third, ask what would count against your belief, what experience would change your mind. Fourth, look for the hidden desire. What are you protecting? Fifth, test your belief in conversation. Not to win, but to clarify. Because Socrates treats disagreement as a tool, not a threat. If the other person is wrong, great, we learn. If you're wrong, even better, we grow. And if you both are partly wrong, you still get something valuable. A more honest map. But one more important thing, especially if you've struggled with spiraling thoughts. Socratic questioning can become a loop if you turn it into self-punishment. It's not meant to produce shame. It's meant to produce understanding. So ask questions that free you, not questions that tighten the knot. The standard you're aiming for is not perfect logic. It's clear seeing. And clear seeing includes your emotional reality, not just your rational one. What you feel is not always a proof, but it is often a clue. As we close, I want to offer you a final mirror. You may think philosophy is about finding answers. But in the Socratic revolution, the real transformation is learning how to stay with questions long enough that your ego can't rush the ending. That's where the change happens. Not when you finally win a debate. When you realize you've been defending a belief that never truly belonged to you. So here's the lingering question, the one you can take into your day like a quiet companion. What belief are you defending right now, less because it's true, and more because it keeps you from feeling the truth you're afraid to meet? If you can answer that honestly, you're already doing philosophy the Socratic way.